Most productivity systems fail for one simple reason. They're too complicated. Because if your system takes you more effort to manage than to actually do the work, you're never going to stick to it. But here's the truth. You don't need a 47-step morning routine or a color-coded calendar to be productive. You just need a simple system that you'll actually follow that will help you stay focused, be more efficient, and end the day with time and energy to do some of the other things that matter most to you. But if you don't take control of your time will control you. And so in this video, I'm going to share with you the simple 3-part productivity system that finally worked for me. And it's the same system that I use to get more done as a full-time lawyer without burning out. And honestly, it's not complicated, it's not overwhelming, but if you actually use it, I am confident that it can help you to work faster and stay focused. Step 1 is to plan your day, because planning your day is like drawing a map for your day. It gives you a clear sense of direction to work towards, and it does identify clearly the things that you want to do throughout the day. But if you don't plan your day, it can just pull you in all sorts of different directions, and you might actually end the day without accomplishing any of the things that you really wanted to do. So what we should do here is firstly, just at a very high level, write out all of the tasks that we want to do throughout the day. And from there is then 3 core principles that I think we should utilize. So firstly, we should use what's called the inverted pyramid principle, which says that we should start our day with the most important task and we should spend the most amount of time on that task. Once we've then done that most important task, we kind of funnel downwards from there and spend less and less time on tasks as the importance of them decreases. And I particularly like this because I am a morning person. I mean, me at 8 in the morning is kind of ready to conquer the world, where me at 8 p.m. is not quite so chirpy. And so this inverted pyramid kind of aligns with like my energy levels and when I am feeling most productive. If you're not a morning person, if you're more of an evening person, I guess you could flip this. So actually you spend more time on tasks later in your day, but that does kind of go against the core principles of this method. And how much time you actually spend on each task is kind of arbitrary. I think a lot of people, when using this method, like to use what's called the 3-2-1 principle, which is where they spend 3 hours on that most important task, 2 hours on the next, and then 1 hour on their kind of final task for the day. I think ultimately that depends a little bit on how much time you have and how much time you're wanting to spend on these tasks. But I would say that it is important to actually think about how much time you are going to spend on the various tasks. And when you're doing that, I would try to leverage the next 2 principles that we're going to talk about. And so the next principle is to utilize Parkinson's law, which essentially says that work will expand to fill the time we allocate it. So if we give 2 hours to a task, it's probably going to take us 2 hours to do that task. Where if we actually thought to ourselves that that same task could be done in 45 minutes and we just give ourselves 45 minutes, in all likelihood, we probably would be able to complete that task within that much shorter time period. And so the takeaway is to really make sure that you do set some sort of deadline for each of the tasks that you're wanting to do. And in reality, probably set a bit of a shorter and tighter deadline than you might initially think. And another real benefit of this is that I think it will really help when we come on to actually implementing the actions, which we're going to talk about in the next step of this video. And then the third and final principle in this step 1 of planning your day is to utilize the Pareto Principle, which essentially says that not all tasks are equal and that 80% of the results can come from just 20% of the cause. i.e., if you can really just figure out like what are the most important actions within some sort of task that you're trying to complete, you can probably get like 80% of the way to the results that you want to get to by just finding what those like 20% most important things to do are. And a good example, I think, is this very YouTube channel. I mean, there's a lot of things that I could do that could be considered like working on my YouTube channel, but they're probably going to be things that aren't really going to move the needle for me. I mean, I could spend like hours researching video setup or lighting or new like editing tricks and things like that. But in reality, the more important tasks for me are probably just going to be like actually sitting down, trying to come up with good ideas, doing a good amount of research, and then ultimately pressing record. And so whilst some of those other things are important to a certain extent, what I should for the most part be focusing on is those items that are really actually going to move things for me. And so you don't need to spend hours in this planning stage, but just giving it a little bit of thought and utilizing these core principles, it can, as I say, give you that real sense of direction to work towards, and it will ultimately allow you to be way more efficient. So moving on to step 2, which is all about implementing the plan that we've come up with. Then You might think, all right, how do we actually implement this plan? And you might say what we need is motivation to be able to do the things that we said we were going to do. Unfortunately, motivation, it's a bit like a British summer. It's lovely when it shows up, but you can't really rely on it or plan around it in any real way. But I do think there are a few things that you can try to do to enable more motivation. So firstly, you need to focus and make sure that you're ticking off your healthy habits. So that means exercising regularly, sleeping well, eating well, hydrating, and trying to minimize stress. If you're doing those things, hopefully you will just be more naturally energized and motivated. And for me, I would particularly highlight exercise. I think it is such a little trick that you can use and to benefit you, because for me, often if I am actually feeling a little bit down or a little bit sluggish or like my energy is actually low, exercise will be the thing that I will turn to. And it can be night and day, the difference between how I feel before and after exercise. And just utilizing exercise, it can really shift my mood and allow me to have way more motivation and energy to be able to do the things that I want to do. Secondly, here, I would try to kind of just utilize your mindset and just remind yourself a little bit that ultimately you've identified some of these things that you want to do. And so presumably they are important to you. But ultimately, your circumstances and your surroundings, they're not going to change if you don't implement these things that you want to do. And so try to just kind of frame that within your mind and use that as a little bit of motivation to get going and give you that kind of sense of urgency. And the thirdly here is where Parkinson's law, like we talked about in the planning stage, will hopefully benefit you. Because if you have used that Parkinson's law principle, that will have given you more of a constraint around how long you have to do some of those tasks. And again, hopefully that will just give you a little bit more urgency to do some of these things. However, if we've done all of those things and we still have no motivation and really just can't be bothered to do something, what you need to realize is that you most definitely can still take action anyway. You can feel completely unenergized and still do that work that you wanted to do, or feel completely tired and still go to the gym. And the thing is, if you just take a little bit of action, even just for a few minutes, hopefully that will be enough to get you going and get you flowing with whatever the thing is and give you some of that momentum. And then once you start going, you might actually realize that it was a lot easier than you thought it was going to be. And then my final trick here, if none of that works at all, would be to just go for a walk. Just for 10 or 20 minutes, ideally in nature if possible, but it doesn't have to be. Because I think going for a walk, it's really like a reset button. I have never, once in my life, come back from a walk in a worse mood or feeling less motivated. And so I think that is another really thing that you can go to. And what I would say also is that as you're coming towards the end of the walk, try to just remind yourself again of some of those mindset things like we talked about, and try to just tell yourself, all right, I'm just going to come back from this walk and just try for a few minutes to do whatever the thing is. And hopefully that will give you enough of that energy and enough of that motivation to just get started and get over that initial hump. And then from there, hopefully again, it will be a lot easier for you to get going. And then step 3 is to find focus. So hopefully now we have actually started to implement the things that we said we were going to do. But we need to also try to be as focused and be as productive and be as efficient with these things as possible. And so there is a few things that I would say here around focus. So firstly, I would try to prepare for whatever the things are, like you're going to the cinema. And when you go to the cinema, before you sit down, you probably prepare to be sat down for a good 2-3 hours. You'll probably go to the toilet, you'll maybe buy some snacks, send any messages that you need to, and then from there, you can just be sat down and engrossed in the film. And when it comes to work and doing some of these things, I try to treat it similarly. So I would also go to the toilet beforehand. If you do feel hungry, have a snack or bring a snack in to your work environment with you. Maybe have some caffeine, switch off your phone if that's necessary, and just try to tell yourself that for the next hour, 2 hours, it is time to just lock in and be in the zone with your work. And if you can kind of just prepare like that, hopefully it will enable you to more easily do the thing that you want to do. Link to that is to directly try to eliminate distractions as much as possible, because I think focus is almost like Wi-Fi. If you connect too many things into it, everything just starts to slow down and your brain will find it very difficult to refocus once it has been distracted. And so try to just design your environment to work for you. So If your phone is something that distracts you, I mean, maybe think about whether the phone should be in the work environment with you, or whether there's any settings that you can put on your phone to prevent pop-ups coming in. Also, try to be somewhere that's quiet, and ultimately just try to make your environment work for you and make work the easiest thing to do. An example I saw of this was from Alex Hormozy, who's massive on YouTube and a real business guru, and he says that his productivity setup is to basically remove all natural light from his surrounding. He also then wears earplugs and noise cancelling headphones, and I think he shuts off all apps coming into his phone. And he basically, as I said, he just makes work kind of like the only thing for him to be able to do. And whether you want to go as extreme with that is kind of up to you, but it does just illustrate how if you can design that environment to work for you, it should just enable work to be the kind of number one priority and the easiest thing to do. And so if we do some of those things, hopefully that will eliminate those physical distractions. But we also need to think about eliminating mental distractions, because if you're anything like me, you can sometimes even sit down, but then you just start getting all those random thoughts popping into your head that can distract you of something you want to do, or something you want to research, or someone you need to talk to. And the thing that I've found to be most useful to deal with that is to just try to capture these ideas. And capture them in, it can just be some literal physical to-do list, or it can be an app on your phone. But by capturing them, what you do is you can kind of tell your brain, all right, I have identified them as things that I want to do, and I've listed them down in some sort of organized list, which I can then come back to. And so I'm not just completely ignoring them. But once you have captured them, you can just tell your brain, all right, I've got them there and I will deal with them at a later point in time. But for now, it is time just to refocus on the main task at hand. Because really, focus, I don't think it's like a massive talent. I think so much of it is just around design. And if you can just design your environment and implement some of these systems to be working for you, hopefully focus will just come far more naturally. So there you go. Plan, implement, focus, and if you do all those things effectively, hopefully you will be able to do all of the things that you want to do in a far more efficient way. I hope you found this video useful. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.